The bakery smells like burnt sugar and rain. It's 8:52 p.m. 8 minutes to close. Behind the display case, Tracy Gibbs wipes down the last tray, her apron dusted white with flour that isn't even hers to sweep. This shift belongs to cleaning, not baking, but nobody else was going to do it before the doors locked. At the counter, an elderly woman sets down one thing. A single round loaf, still warm, wrapped in brown paper like it matters. She opens her purse. Stops. Opens it wider. Turns it upside down over the counter. A receipt falls out. Nothing else. I had it this morning. I know I had it. The cashier doesn't even look up. Ma'am, we close in 8 minutes. Please, just let me call my daughter, she can? There's people behind you. There are. 4 of them. And they're not staying quiet about it. Unbelievable. Some people think they can just walk in here. She probably does this every week. A man near the door laughs, not kindly. Get a real wallet, lady. The manager appears from the back office, already reaching for his radio. I'll have someone walk her out. Walk her out. Over 1 loaf of bread. The old woman's hands are shaking now, not from cold. From being looked at like she's a thief for being poor or forgetful or old or all 3. Tracy stops wiping the tray down. She reaches into her apron. 3 $1 bills. Soft at the folds from being pulled out and put back so many times this month. The exact amount she has left until Friday. The exact amount that was going to be her daughter Lily's dinner tonight, because the fridge at home has ketchup, half an onion, and nothing else. She doesn't think about that part right now. She walks up, sets the $3 on the counter and says 4 words. I've got this one. The store goes silent in a way that's almost violent. The old woman turns to her, and for a second her face doesn't know what to do, like she hasn't been seen like this in a long time. You don't even know me. No, ma'am. Tracy slides the loaf toward her gently. But I know what a room full of strangers deciding who deserves kindness looks like. You don't deserve that. Nobody does. The woman studies her for a long moment. Then quietly, what's your name? Tracy. Tracy Gibbs. The woman's eyes don't leave hers. Tracy Gibbs. I'm never going to forget that name. She says it like a promise. Or a warning. Nobody in that store, including Tracy, has any idea which one it actually is yet. The next morning, Tracy Gibbs will lose the only job keeping her family afloat. 4 days later, a car will pull up outside her apartment that costs more than she'll earn in 10 years. And in 7 months, she will be standing in a boardroom being asked why a janitor is allowed to sit at that table. And the answer will silence the entire room. This is that story. Stay with it, because the woman with the empty purse is about to change everything. To understand why Tracy Gibbs didn't hesitate, why she handed over money she couldn't afford to lose for a total stranger, you have to understand what those $3 actually represented. 2 years ago, Tracy buried her husband. Cancer took 11 months to do it, and it took almost everything else with him. The savings, the second income, the version of her life where she wasn't doing math in her head every time she stood in a checkout line. Now it's just her and Lily, 10 years old, sharper than she has any right to be, the kind of kid who still says, "We're okay, Mom," even when the lights bill is sitting open on the counter with a red stamp on it. Tracy works nights at Harvest and Home, mopping floors, breaking down boxes, cleaning up other people's messes long after the store closes, because the day shift barely covers rent, and somebody has to make up the difference. She's the person managers like and never promote. The one customers remember as so sweet, and never think about twice. She has spent 2 years putting everyone else's needs a half step ahead of her own, so consistently, so quietly, that it doesn't even register to her as sacrifice anymore. It's just Tuesday. Which is exactly why, when she saw an old woman being humiliated over a loaf of bread, giving away her last $3 wasn't a hard decision. It was the only decision she knew how to make. What Tracy doesn't know, what she has no way of knowing, is that the woman standing across that counter isn't struggling at all. She is one of the wealthiest women in the country. And she didn't walk into that store by accident. She walked in looking for something money can't buy, proof that people like Tracy still exist. She just found her. Before we go any further, if you've ever given something up for a stranger and never expected anything back, drop a comment below and tell us. And if you want to see exactly how far 1 loaf of bread is about to travel, make sure you're subscribed, because what happens to Tracy in the next 48 hours is going to change both of their lives forever. Tracy doesn't remember the walk home. 1 second she's standing outside Harvest and Home with a cardboard box holding 2 years of a life, a spare cardigan, a chipped mug, a photo of Marcus taped to the inside of her locker. And the next she's standing in front of her own apartment door, keys shaking in her hand because she still hasn't figured out what she's going to say. Lily is at the kitchen table doing homework, feet swinging under her chair. Hey Mom. How was? Good baby. Long night. Tracy sets the box down where Lily can't see the label from the store still stuck to the side. You eat. Had cereal. We're out of milk though. I know. I'll figure it out. She says it the way she said it 100 times before, steady, warm, like there's a plan behind it. There isn't. There's $3 less than there was yesterday, no job, and a 10-year-old who still believes her mother has this handled. Tracy goes into the bathroom, turns on the tap so the sound covers everything, and lets herself cry for exactly 90 seconds. Then she shuts it off, splats water on her face, and goes back out to help with the long division like nothing happened at all. Across town, in a part of the city where the streetlights look different, softer, more deliberate, a car turns through iron gates and up a drive lined with cypress trees. Sarah Connor sits in the back seat, the loaf of bread still resting on her lap, untouched, wrapped in its brown paper like something worth more than it should be. Her driver opens the door. She doesn't move right away. Mrs. Connor? I'm fine, Marcus. Just thinking. Inside, the house is quiet, the particular quiet of a home too large for the people who live in it. Sarah Connor, founder and chairwoman of Connor International Holdings, one of the wealthiest women in the country according to any list you'd care to check, has not been recognized in a grocery store in 11 years. She's made sure of that. Simple code. No driver waiting at the entrance. No assistant 3 steps behind her. She wanted for 1 hour to just be an old woman buying bread. She got more than she bargained for. Her daughter Olivia finds her in the study, still holding the loaf. Mom? You're back late. Everything okay? No, Sarah says. Then quieter, and also, yes. More than okay. You're going to have to explain that. So Sarah does. She tells her everything. The empty purse, the whispers, the manager reaching for security, the $4 that separated her from public humiliation. And then the janitor. The one who didn't hesitate. The one who gave away money she clearly couldn't spare, for a stranger she owed nothing. She had $3, Olivia. 3. And she didn't even pause to think about it. Olivia sits down slowly. What was her name? Tracy Gibbs. Sarah says it like she's been holding on to it all evening, protecting it. That woman gave away everything she had. Not because she had extra. Because she saw someone hurting and it didn't occur to her not to help. So write her a check. 10,000, 20, whatever makes it right. Sarah shakes her head, and for the first time all evening, something sharp enters her voice. No. Money says thank you. Money doesn't say I see who you are. She sets the bread down finally, deliberately. A woman like that doesn't need charity, Olivia. She needs a door opened. There's a difference and I intend to know it. She picks up the phone before she's even finished the thought. Marcus, I need you to find someone for me tonight. Her name is Tracy Gibbs. She worked, at Harvest and Home on 14th. Find her address. And get the car ready. Both cars. Tonight, ma'am? Tonight. Back in a cramped apartment 3 miles east, Lily is finally asleep, homework abandoned half finished on the table. Tracy sits alone in the dark kitchen, staring at an eviction notice she hasn't found the words to mention to anyone. That's when she hears it. Headlights. 2 sets. Sweeping slow across the ceiling of her living room. Car doors closing outside, one after another, smooth, expensive, deliberate. Tracy stands, heart suddenly loud in her own ears, and moves to the window. There, parked outside her building, gleaming under the streetlight like something from a different world entirely, sit 2 black town cars, and she has absolutely no idea why they're here for her. Tracy doesn't open the door right away. She stands there with her hand on the lock, listening to footsteps on the stairs outside, unhurried, certain, the kind of footsteps that belong to people who never have to wonder if a door will open for them. A knock. Soft. Almost polite. When she finally pulls the door back, she doesn't understand what she's looking at for a second. The woman from the grocery store. Same coat. Same tired, kind eyes. Except now there's a man in a suit standing 2 steps behind her, and beyond him at the curb 2 black town cars idle under the streetlight like they don't belong on this block at all. Mrs. Tracy starts. Sarah Connor. She says it gently, like she's aware of how strange this must look. I'm sorry to come so late. I hope I didn't wake anyone. No, Lily's asleep. I don't. Tracy shakes her head, trying to catch up. How did you find me? I asked. People tend to remember someone who does what you did tonight. Sarah glances past her into the small apartment. The second-hand couch, the eviction notice half hidden under a napkin on the counter that she notices and says nothing about. May I come in for a few minutes? Tracy steps aside before she's fully decided to. They sit at the kitchen table. Sarah folds her hands the way people do when they've rehearsed what comes next but still want it to sound unrehearsed. I should tell you who I am properly, she says. I'm the chairwoman of Connor International Holdings. Tracy blinks. The name means something. She's seen it on buildings downtown, on the news, attached to numbers with more zeros than she's ever had reason to count. That Connor International? That one. You were buying bread. With no money in your purse. I do that sometimes. Go out alone. No driver waiting at the door, no one recognizing my name. A small, tired smile. It's the only way I ever find out what people are really like. Tracy sits back slowly. And what you found out is I lost my job. What I found out, Sarah says, is that a woman with almost nothing gave away everything she had rather than watch a stranger be humiliated. That's rarer than you think, Tracy. Rarer than anything my money can buy. I don't understand what you're doing here. I'm offering you a place in Connor International's Executive Leadership Academy. Full salary. Full training. A real seat in the company, not a favor, not a photo opportunity. A future. Tracy laughs, short, disbelieving, almost hurt. I mopped floors 12 hours ago. I don't have a degree past community college. I don't know the first thing about. I can teach business, Sarah says quietly, cutting through it. I have 100 people who can teach business. I cannot teach character. I cannot teach someone to give away their last $3 without blinking. That either lives in a person or it doesn't. She leans forward. It lives in you. The kitchen is silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. This isn't a joke? Tracy finally asks, voice small. Because if this is some kind of... It isn't a joke. And it isn't charity either. I want to be very clear about that. This is an opportunity. What you do with it will be entirely up to you. Tracy looks down at her own hands, flour still faintly ground into the creases from a job that no longer exists, and then toward the hallway, where her daughter is sleeping without any idea how close they'd come to losing everything. Okay, she says. Okay. Yes. Steadier now. Yes. She doesn't sleep that night, not really. She sits on the edge of Lily's bed until her daughter stirs awake near midnight, confused, asking why mom's crying. Good crying, Tracy whispers. I promise. Good crying. She tells her everything, all of it tumbling out. The bread, the firing, the woman, the offer. And Lily just stares at her for a long moment before wrapping both arms around her neck, tight enough to steal the breath from her. I told you, Lily mumbles into her shoulder. I told you being nice always comes back. Tracy holds her daughter in the dark, and for the first time in longer than she can remember, she lets herself believe it too. Hope, it turns out, doesn't arrive quietly. Sometimes it pulls up in 2 black town cars at midnight. The Connor International Tower doesn't look real up close. Tracy stands across the street from it at 7:40 in the morning, 40 minutes early because she couldn't stand waiting at home a second longer, staring up at 60 floors of glass catching the sunrise like it was built specifically to remind people how small they are. She smooths down the blazer she bought secondhand 2 nights ago, tags still itching faintly at the collar, and walks in before she can talk herself out of it. The lobby alone could swallow her old apartment 3 times over. Marble floors so polished she can see her own reflection walking beside her. A woman at the front desk who says, "Good morning, Miss Gibbs, you're expected on the 40th floor," like Tracy belongs there, like this isn't the strangest sentence anyone has ever said to her. The elevator doors open onto a conference room already half full. 12 trainees, all sharper dressed, all clutching folders with degrees behind their names that Tracy doesn't have. Conversation stops the second she steps through the door, not all at once but in a ripple, person to person, like the room is passing a rumor around in real time. She hears it before she's even found a seat. She's the janitor? Not whispered quite quietly enough. A man near the front, early 40s, expensive suit, the kind of posture that assumes it's owed something, turns fully around to look at her, not bothering to lower his voice at all. I'm sorry, is this a joke? Did HR mix up a list somewhere? A few nervous laughs ripple around him. No offense, but this is the Executive Leadership Academy. Not a job fair. Tracy feels her face go hot. She doesn't sit. She doesn't leave either. She just stands there, absorbing it, the way she's absorbed 100 small humiliations before, quietly without giving anyone the satisfaction of a reaction. That's when the door opens again. Sarah Connor walks in like she owns the room because she does. The laughter dies instantly. "Good morning," Sarah says, setting a folder on the podium she doesn't even glance at. "I understand there have been some questions about our newest trainee. Several of you have gone to HR directly. So let's settle it here all at once so nobody has to wonder in private anymore." She looks directly at the man who spoke. "Richard, was it?" "Richard Lawson," he says, straightening slightly. "Senior Vice President. I just think it's fair to ask how someone with no corporate background." "2 nights ago," Sarah says, cutting through him without raising her voice, "I stood in a grocery store with an empty purse. A room full of strangers decided I was a thief or a fool or both. One person in that store, a janitor working her 3rd overnight shift that week, gave away the last $3 she owned so I wouldn't be humiliated in front of everyone." She lets that sit for a moment. "She didn't know who I was. She didn't ask what she'd get in return. She simply couldn't stand watching someone be treated that way." The room is dead silent. "I have 100 people who understand a balance sheet, Richard. I can teach that in 6 months. What I cannot teach, what none of you can learn from a textbook, is what Tracy Gibbs already has. Character. That is not on a resume. That is not a degree. And it is worth more to this company than every credential in this room combined." She turns, gives Tracy the smallest nod, and walks out exactly as she came in. No one laughs again. Tracy studies like her life depends on it because in every way that matters, it does. She stays 2 hours past everyone else, reading reports until the words blur, asking questions in meetings that make people pause before realizing they don't actually have an answer either. She learns faster than anyone expects and she never once mentions the mop. 3 weeks in, Sarah calls her into her office. "I'm assigning you to the Ridgeview redevelopment team. Community outreach lead." Tracy's breath catches. "That's a $1 billion project." "It is." Down the hall, Richard Lawson hears the news within the hour. The same project he'd been quietly maneuvering toward for months, handed instead to a woman who was mopping floors 3 weeks ago. He doesn't say anything to anyone. He just closes his office door, sits very still at his desk and decides very calmly that Tracy Gibbs is not going to succeed on his watch. The Ridgeview Community Center smells like old coffee and folding chairs, and it's the first place in 3 weeks where Tracy feels like she can actually breathe. She's sitting on a metal chair, not behind a podium, not at the head of a table, just in the circle, notebook on her knee, listening to a woman named Denise talk about the hospital that used to be 12 minutes away and is now 40. "Every developer that's come through here has shown us a rendering," Denise says, arms crossed. "Nice buildings. Bless. Rooftop gardens. Not one of them asked what we actually need." "So tell me," Tracy says, "what do you need?" The room goes quiet for a second, not the hostile kind of quiet, the surprised kind. "You're actually asking?" "I'm asking because I don't know. I grew up 2 neighborhoods over from places like this. I know what a promise looks like when nobody intends to keep it. I'd rather build something people actually use than something that looks good in a press release." Denise studies her for a long moment, then starts talking. Really talking. Schools with buckets under the ceiling when it rains. A grocery store that closed and left the nearest fresh produce 11 miles out. A bus route cut in half 2 years ago that nobody with power ever bothered to ride. Tracy writes every word down. She comes back the following week. And the week after that. She learns names, not just Denise but her daughter, her mother, the man who runs the barbershop on the corner who's been asking developers for a real lease for 6 years and getting nothing. She eats what people offer her instead of politely declining. She stays after meetings end when people are more honest than they are in front of a recorder. Word travels fast in a neighborhood that's used to being lied to. "She's different," Denise tells another resident outside the community center one afternoon, not realizing Tracy is close enough to hear. She actually writes it down. She actually comes back. Back at headquarters, the shift is small at first. A comment in a meeting, a nod from someone who usually doesn't nod. Then it's the regional director stopping by Tracy's desk to say the Ridgeview Community Board specifically requested her by name for the next site visit. Then it's Olivia Connor mentioning, almost offhand, that resident trust surveys in the district have moved more in 6 weeks than they had in 6 years under the previous team. Sarah calls Tracy into her office on a Thursday. "I'm promoting you to senior project lead," she says without any preamble at all. "Effective immediately." Tracy opens her mouth and Sarah holds up a hand before she can protest. "You've earned it, Tracy. Not because I like you. Because the numbers say so, and because I've never seen a community trust one of my teams this fast. That's not luck. That's you." Richard hears about the promotion from someone else in passing in the elevator, which somehow makes it worse. He doesn't say anything. He goes back to his office, closes the door and sits with it for a long time. 8 years. 8 years of late nights, of missed dinners, of building relationships with board members one careful handshake at a time, waiting for exactly this. A senior lead position on a marquee project, the kind that gets your name mentioned in rooms you're not even in yet. And it went to a woman who was cleaning bathrooms 2 months ago. He tells himself it's not personal. It's process. It's precedent. It's unfair, and unfair things deserve to be corrected, one way or another. That night, long after the office has emptied out, Richard is still at his desk. He opens his laptop, and instead of closing it and going home like he should, his fingers hover over the shared drive, the one holding every file for the Ridgeview project. Financial models. Community reports. The presentation Tracy has been building for weeks, the one meant to secure funding that could define both their careers. He tells himself he's just looking. Just checking the numbers the way any concerned senior executive might. He clicks into the folder. Tracy Gibbs Ridgeview Master File. He stares at it for a long moment, jaw tight, something cold settling behind his eyes. Then he starts to read. The boardroom on the 52nd floor has a view that stretches to the harbor, but Tracy doesn't see any of it. She's too busy running through her notes one final time, fingers steady even though her stomach isn't. 6 weeks of work sits inside the folder in front of her. Community surveys. Housing projections. Every promise Denise and her neighbors made her write down, translated into numbers a room full of investors would actually take seriously. The Kowalski group arrives at 9 sharp, 4 of them unreadable expressions, the kind of quiet confidence that comes from having said no to 100 pitches before this one. Miss Cruz, Gibbs, the lead investor corrects himself, offering a hand. Apologies. We've heard quite a bit about you. Good things, I hope. We'll see. Sarah takes a seat near the back, giving Tracy the room to lead this one alone. Richard sits 3 chairs down, arms crossed, watching with an expression Tracy doesn't have time to interpret. The lights dim. The first slide comes up, and something is wrong. Tracy feels it before she fully registers it. A number on the projection screen that doesn't match the one she memorized last night. She glances down at her printed copy. Then back up. They don't match. Her pulse spikes. She flips to the next slide, heart hammering now, scanning faster. The projected costs are inflated by nearly 40%. The community benefit numbers, the ones she built directly from resident interviews, have been quietly stripped down to almost nothing. It doesn't look like a typo. It looks deliberate. Miss Gibbs, the lead investor prompts. Whenever you're ready. Every eye in the room is on her. She has maybe 3 seconds to decide who she wants to be in this exact moment. She could keep going. Talk fast, talk smooth, blame a formatting error, push through it and hope nobody checks too closely. It's what half the executives in this building would do without blinking. She closes the folder instead. I need to stop, she says. The room goes very still. These numbers are not the ones I prepared. Somewhere between my final draft and this presentation they were changed. I don't know exactly when or by whom, but I know they're wrong, and I will not stand here and present something to you that isn't true. Nobody moves. Somewhere down the table, Richard's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. Miss Gibbs, the investor says slowly, are you telling us your own presentation has been sabotaged? I'm telling you I can't verify these figures, and until I can, I'm not willing to put my name on them. If you'll give me 48 hours, I will bring you the real numbers, the ones this project was actually built on. And if you decide after that we're not the right partner, I'll understand. The silence stretches long enough that Tracy is certain she's just ended her career in front of the one client that mattered most. Then the lead investor sets down his pen. In 20 years of evaluating proposals, he says, I have never once watched someone stop their own presentation because the numbers didn't feel honest. He looks around at his colleagues, then back at her. Most people in your position would have gambled that we wouldn't notice. I couldn't do that to you. Or to the people this project is supposed to help. We don't need 48 hours, Miss Gibbs. A small, genuine smile. We trust honest leaders. That's rarer than a perfect spreadsheet. The room breaks into applause before Tracy fully understands what just happened. Sarah rising first, the sound spreading down the table, even a few of the trainees she recognizes from orientation clapping like they mean it. The Kowalski group signs a letter of intent before they leave the building. Richard sits through all of it with his hands folded tightly enough to whiten his knuckles, watching the exact opposite of what he'd planned unfold in real time. He'd expected panic, collapse, a stammering apology and a canceled deal that would quietly end Tracy's short, undeserved career. Instead, he just watched her turn his sabotage into the most convincing pitch of the entire meeting. That evening, Sarah calls an emergency meeting with legal and IT security. Someone accessed and altered Miss Gibbs's project files without authorization, she says, her voice calm in the way that's far more frightening than shouting would be. I want to know who, and I want to know by the end of week. Richard nods along with everyone else in the room, expression carefully composed. But for the first time since this whole thing started, he doesn't feel like a man who's about to win. He feels like a man who's about to be found out. The investigation takes 4 days. IT security traces the file changes to a login timestamp of 11:47 p.m., a Tuesday, from an office 3 doors down from Tracy's. By Friday, there's no ambiguity left in the report sitting on the boardroom table. Just a name, a time, and a trail Richard never bothered to fully cover, because some part of him, Tracy suspects, never actually believed he'd get caught. The board convenes at 9 a.m. Richard is asked to attend, to address some findings. He knows before he sits down. Sarah doesn't waste time on ceremony. She slides the report across the table toward him. Would you like to explain this, Richard, or should legal explain it for you? He stares at the page for a long moment. Then, quietly, something in him just gives out. I did it, he says. The words come out smaller than anyone expects from a man his size, his title. I changed the figures. I wanted her to fail in front of the investors. I wanted everyone in this building to see that she didn't belong. Why? Sarah's voice isn't angry. It's worse than angry, it's disappointed. Richard's hands are shaking now. 8 years, he says. 8 years of late nights, of missing my daughter's recitals, of taking every project nobody else wanted because I was told that's how you earn a seat at this table. And then she walks in, no MBA, no experience, nothing, and gets handed the exact thing I'd been working toward my entire career. He looks up, eyes wet, ashamed of it. I told myself it wasn't personal. It was completely personal. I was jealous, and I let it turn me into someone I don't recognize. The room is silent. One of the board members finally speaks. Given the severity of this and the potential damage to the Kowalski partnership, I move we terminate Mr. Lawson's employment effective immediately, along with pursuing. Wait. Every head turns. Tracy has been quiet through all of it, standing near the window, arms crossed. Now she steps forward. Before anyone votes on anything, she says, I'd like to say something. Sarah nods for her to continue. What Richard did was wrong. It could have cost this company a billion-dollar partnership. It could have ended my career before it even started. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't matter. She turns, meeting Richard's eyes directly. But I also know what it feels like to watch something you've worked for get handed to someone else, even when it isn't your fault. I know what desperation does to good people. And I don't think firing him teaches this company anything except that mistakes are permanent. I don't want to build a career on being someone who ends people the first time they fail. Tracy, one board member starts. I'm asking you to give him one more chance. Real consequences. Reassignment, oversight, whatever legal thinking is appropriate. But not the door. Not yet. Silence again, thicker this time. Richard is staring at her like she's speaking a language he doesn't understand. You're asking me to spare the man who tried to destroy your career, Sarah says slowly. I'm asking you to let him become someone different than he was 2 weeks ago. People deserve to be judged by the choices they make next, not only the ones they've already made. Sarah studies her for a long moment, and something like pride settles into her expression. Then that's exactly what we'll do, she says, turning to the board. Richard keeps his position under strict review, reporting directly to me for the next year. Is there any objection? There isn't. Nobody in that room has the nerve to argue with what just happened. Richard doesn't say anything to Tracy as the meeting ends. He just nods once, barely, like a man who's been given something he didn't expect and doesn't yet know how to hold. That evening, Sarah asks Tracy to stop by her office before heading home. I have something for you, Sarah says, sliding an envelope across the desk. Tracy opens it slowly. Property documents. Her building, the one with the leaking radiator and the eviction notice she never told anyone about, deed transferred, fully paid into her name. Sarah, I can't. You already gave everything you had once for a stranger without being asked, Sarah says gently. I'm simply making sure you never have to wonder if you'll have somewhere to come home to again. Tracy's hands tremble around the paper. The $3 she gave away on an ordinary Tuesday has come back, quietly, as something she never dared to hope for. The bread became a home. 3 years passed the way real change always does, not in a single dramatic moment, but in 1,000 small ones nobody bothers to write down. Tracy Gibbs now runs community development for Connor International Holdings, a title that still feels strange in her mouth some mornings, though the work itself never has. Under her, the company has rebuilt 6 neighborhoods the way Ridgeview was rebuilt, not with glass towers dropped onto communities like an afterthought, but with schools that don't leak, grocery stores that stock more than expired produce, bus routes restored because someone finally asked the people who rode them what they needed. She still visits the sites herself. Still sits in folding chairs instead of standing behind podiums. Still writes everything down. Inside headquarters, she's become something rarer than a good executive. She's become someone people actually trust. Every morning, she arrives before most of the building is even lit, and she stops at the same place first. The loading dock, where the overnight cleaning crew is finishing up before the day shift begins. "Morning, Miss Ruiz. How's your son doing with that science project?" "He got an A, Miss Gibbs. Wouldn't stop talking about it." "Good. Tell him I want to see it sometime." She knows all of them by name, every janitor, every overnight security guard, every person whose job used to be hers. Not because someone told her to. Because she remembers exactly what it felt like to be invisible in a building like this one, and she refuses to let anyone else feel that way on her watch. It's part of why, when she proposed a new set of company-wide initiatives 18 months ago, the board approved every single one without much argument. Employee scholarships, full tuition support for any Connor International employee pursuing further education, regardless of position. Housing assistance, an emergency fund for staff facing eviction or unstable housing, no approval committee, no waiting period. Community investment, a permanent fund tied to every major development project, ensuring residents get real infrastructure, not just renderings. Family support programs, childcare stipends, medical leave protections, and grief counseling for employees who've lost someone, the kind of support Tracy wishes had existed the year she lost Marcus. The programs don't just change morale. They change who Connor International attracts, who stays, who believes the name on the building actually means something. The first annual Bread of Hope Gala is held exactly 1 year after the night Tracy handed over her last $3. It's Sarah's idea, though she insists publicly it was the board's. The ballroom is full. Employees from every level of the company, community leaders from Ridgeview and 5 other neighborhoods, Lily in a dress she picked out herself, sitting proudly in the second row next to Denise, who Tracy personally made sure got an invitation. Sarah takes the stage first, briefly, mostly to say one thing. 3 years ago, I went looking for proof that kindness still existed in this world. I found more than I expected. Please welcome the woman who changed this company, and me along with it. Tracy Gibbs. The applause takes a while to settle before Tracy can even speak. She stands at the podium for a moment, looking out at faces she recognizes from folding chairs and loading docks and boardrooms all at once, and lets herself feel, fully, how far $3 actually traveled. 3 years ago, I had exactly $3 in my apron pocket, she begins. It was supposed to be dinner for me and my daughter. I gave it away without thinking twice because in that moment, watching someone be humiliated, there wasn't really a decision to make. She pauses. People ask me sometimes what that moment cost me. And for a long time I thought the answer was obvious. My job, one bad night, $3 I couldn't really spare. She looks towards Sarah, then back out at the room. But I don't think that's actually what I gave up that night. I think the real thing I gave away wasn't the $3 at all. Her voice catches slightly, steadies. It was fear. Fear that helping someone would cost me too much. Fear that kindness was a luxury people like me couldn't afford. The greatest thing I ever gave away wasn't $3. She looks out at the crew from the loading dock, seated proudly near the front for the first time in any gala's history. It was fear. The room rises before she's even finished. A standing ovation that doesn't fully quiet for almost a full minute, Lily clapping loudest of all, Sarah wiping her eyes without any attempt to hide it. Somewhere in the back, near the door, Richard Lawson claps too, quieter than everyone else, but he claps. 5 years to the week after a loaf of bread changed everything, the entire board of Connor International Holdings gathers in the same room where Richard Lawson once mocked a janitor's presence and Tracy Gibbs once stopped a presentation because the truth mattered more than her own career. The mood is different this time. Quieter. Everyone senses something is coming, though nobody agrees on what. Sarah Connor stands at the head of the table, older now in a way that shows more in her posture than her face, and folds her hands the way she always does before saying something that matters. After 31 years, I'm retiring as chairwoman and CEO of this company. A ripple moves through the room, though this part, at least, everyone expected. Sarah is 74. The question has never been if, only when, and who. Eyes shift instinctively toward Richard, who has spent 5 years quietly rebuilding what he broke, rising back to senior vice president through nothing but consistent, careful work. A few glance toward 2 other executives, both qualified, both patient, both assuming today might finally be their day. The board has asked me to name a successor, Sarah continues. I've thought about this for a long time. Longer than most of you know. She pauses, and in that pause Tracy, sitting near the end of the table, notebook open out of habit more than necessity, has no idea what's coming. 5 years ago I went looking for proof that character still existed in this world, Sarah says. I found it in a grocery store, in a janitor who gave away the last $3 she owned without a second thought. I have spent every year since watching that same character shape this company, through honesty when it would have been easier to lie, through mercy when it would have been easier to punish, through vision when it would have been easier to simply maintain what already existed. She looks directly down the table. Tracy Gibbs will be the next chief executive officer of Connor International Holdings. The gasp that moves through the room is audible, sharp intakes of breath, chairs shifting, a stunned silence thick enough to feel. Tracy's pen stops mid-sentence. For a moment she genuinely believes she's misheard. Sarah, I mean it, Sarah says, the warmth in her voice unmistakable now. The board has already voted Tracy. Unanimously. Richard, 3 seats down, is the first to start clapping. Slowly. Then fully. Whatever ambition once lived in him toward this exact chair, it doesn't show on his face now, only something that looks, unmistakably, like respect. Tracy stands slowly, hands trembling slightly against the table. I'll accept, she says. But I have one condition. A few board members exchange glances. No employee of this company, especially the cleaners, the overnight staff, the people whose names never end up on an org chart, should ever feel invisible here again. Not while I hold this title. If that's not something this board can commit to, then I'm not the right person for this. Sarah smiles, the same quiet, knowing smile from a grocery store checkout counter 5 years ago. That isn't a condition, Tracy, she says. It's exactly why you're the right leader. A week later, Tracy drives to a small grocery store on the old side of town, the one with the same flickering sign out front, the same cracked parking lot, the same brand of bread still stacked in the same aisle. She isn't there for an announcement. She isn't there for cameras. Near the loading dock on her break, a young woman sits on an overturned crate, eating a sleeve of crackers slowly, like she's trying to make them last. Tracy sits down beside her. Long shift. The young woman glances up, wary. Yeah. You, she stops, recognition slowly dawning. Wait, aren't you? Tracy Gibbs. She holds out a hand. I used to work here. Right there, actually. She nods toward the dairy case. Mopped that floor more nights than I can count. The young woman shakes her hand, still confused. Why are you talking to me? Because 5 years ago I was exactly where you're sitting, eating exactly what you're eating, wondering if anyone in this building even knew my name. Tracy pulls an envelope from her bag and sets it gently on the crate between them. Starting this year, Connor International is launching a nationwide scholarship and leadership program for janitors, cleaners, maintenance staff. Full tuition. Real mentorship. A real path if you want it. The young woman stares at the envelope, then at Tracy. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Tracy smiles, and for a moment she can still feel the weight of 3 worn dollar bills in her apron pocket, all those years ago. Because someone once believed in me when all I had was $3, she says. It's time that kept traveling. Outside, across the street, a familiar car waits at the curb. Sarah stands beside it, watching, saying nothing until Tracy crosses over to join her. They stand together for a long moment, neither one in a hurry to speak. 1 loaf of bread, Sarah finally says. Changed 2 lives, Tracy finishes. Sarah shakes her head slowly, smiling. No, my dear, she says. It changed thousands. Behind them, across the city, employees and scholarship recipients and families are already gathering for this year's Bread of Hope celebration. A ripple that started with one small, quiet act of compassion, still spreading outward, further than either woman standing on that sidewalk could ever fully see. Sometimes the greatest fortunes aren't earned in boardrooms. Sometimes they begin with the last $3 in a janitor's pocket.